28th, daylight. The monsters have overtaken the city. Somehow, I'm still alive.
Hey everyone, my name is JJ.
And I'm Andrew.
And you're watching The Residents of Evil. We're on the set of our latest fan film, The Keeper's Diary, a biohazard story in the Keeper's Room. And today we are joined by two legends who helped shape the Resident Evil universe into what we know and love today.
And today we are once again entering the world of survival horror, so please allow us to introduce RPD's very own STARS member, 7-time Gemini Award nominee and 2-time winner, Catherine Disher, who voiced Jill Valentine in Resident Evil Nemesis, released on the PlayStation in 1999.
You want stars? I'll give you stars.
Joining us as well is 3-time Gemini Award nominee, the one and only Alyson, who voiced Claire Redfield in Resident Evil 2, released on the PlayStation in 1998, as well as other entries in the series, notably Resident Evil Code Veronica, Darkside Chronicles, and the CG film Resident Evil Degeneration.
You lose, big guy.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Of course. It is very fun. I'm glad you guys got here safe and all that good stuff.
We had a great drive up, actually. We picked Addie's brain.
Oh, yeah.
All the way up. She's a wealth of information about the RE2 franchises and the lore behind it. And I heard about stuff that I would never have heard as a voice actor recording it. So it was really fascinating.
Yeah.
Shout out to Baggy Bag.
Yeah, we definitely love having her on the team. She's actually helping with our next project. It is a fan film where all the OGs from the original live action cast are returning. And we had like 5-hour-long meetings some days about where the story should go, and she knew things that like even I didn't know, and it was
Those were the same actors that I would have seen in the other videos that you made.
Yep.
And that's what convinced me that I would attempt to play the game on camera, because they sucked at it.
Oh, yeah.
Is that my blood or is it the dog's blood? His blood is yours. Oh shit, so I haven't even hit him once? You fucker.
And I thought it would be humiliating to try, and then I saw them and I went, it's actually kind of funny to watch people suck at it. So
practicing, like I am so.
I did not. No, I really didn't practice.
I don't know, man. I can't get out of the alleyway.
Yeah.
I can't. I want to talk about sucking. Like no.
Well, you're gonna hear a lot of bad words.
So have you played your Resident Evil 2 before?
Yeah, yeah. So when it first came out, my then boyfriend, he and I rented, because back when Blockbuster was a thing, we were able to rent the game system and rent the game.
Yep.
And we sat up in my room playing it and screaming. And then whenever one of us would die, then the other one would take over and try it again. And I remember the first time when we went into the room with the from the liquor coming through the glass, right? That was the one where we both, I'd never heard a guy scream like a girl before. And it was just like, both of us, we jumped and we sat there like this. And then when we finally, our breathing calmed down, I took over. But then we get to that room and it's like, inch. Oh, no, I'm not going to move anymore because the thing's going to come through. And of course it doesn't when you're expecting it. So then you grab the spray and then as you're going, it gets you. And we screamed again and died again. And I think we had to turn it off that night.
Oh yeah, you dealt with it. That was pretty wild actually, playing with your then boyfriend.
Yeah.
So you guys are playing it for together, experiencing that, and he's playing with Claire Redfield. That's got to be wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did he say anything about because when you're talking in the game, you sound exactly like Claire. How was that for him?
I don't think he actually really cared.
No, he didn't.
Knew
you too well then.
He's used to my voice. He had to live with it. So it wasn't particularly special.
And your screams were the same screams he heard at home.
Well, I was going to say that was a comment that was made. He was like, "Yeah, you don't sound like you're dying." So
I watched my son play RE3 when he was I thought he was old enough to play it.
Yeah.
And he'd already finished it at a friend's house by the time I gave it to him. He was like, oh yeah, I've already done that. I was like, oh, okay. But when I watched him play, I have a thing about zombies. It took me 6 attempts to watch the first episode of The Walking Dead.
Oh, wow.
And I finally figured out I could watch it if I muted it and if I had IMDb out beside me. And I figured out how many episodes each actor did so I could figure out who died next.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was just, my son was just disgusted with me. But that was the only way that I was like, it's okay. I just need to know. Because I kept begging him, tell me who dies next. I just need to know.
Yeah.
But zombies freak me out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So you're not a fan of all the old George Romero movies?
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Oh, no. I mean, and also in this game, they're stressful. These games are stressful.
Yeah.
Especially the one you're in. That's
My
one of the
God.
most tense ones there is with
Yeah.
the nemesis there.
But now it just comes out of nowhere.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how long ago were you watching the gameplay then?
What do you mean?
When you were talking about your son playing?
Oh, well, he was born, it was after, he would have been about 10 or 12. So like 2003, 2004.
Okay. Nice. Very cool.
Yeah. And that's crazy that you're in a game that would terrify you, right? But that's kind of what Resident Evil did to a lot of people. When it came out, just like George Romero's zombie movies, they kind of left a lasting impression on people because they were just so brutal, right? And then for Resident Evil, when it came out, it was that way for video games. For me, when I was a kid, I was used to games on Super Nintendo, kids games, right? Yeah. And then when my cousins got a PlayStation with Resident Evil 2, that was the first one I played, and we booted up, the first character we played as was Claire Redfield. And it captivated me. I was so terrified. I could not look away. I couldn't stop, but I had to keep going, kind of like a train wreck. You can't look away. And it was just so different at the time than anything I've ever played before, And I think that's why it has such a lasting appeal for people, is because of the impression it had. Just like you say, with zombies being so scary.
Wasn't the first Jill Valentine in the first Resident Evil, wasn't she the first playable female character in a horror survival game?
Probably.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so it was really groundbreaking.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And that was for like all the Resident Evil games. They always had a female and a male character in it.
Yeah, I kind of a bone to pick too, because when I are you okay?
Yeah.
When I got the job at Resident Evil 3, I did go and take a look at Resident Evil 1, and she's in tactical gear. And I was like, okay, cool. I can imagine myself in tactical gear while I do this.
Yes.
And of course, they didn't show me any renderings or any pictures or anything. So I did it all. And then about 3 or 4 months later, they came back and we had to do some additional recording. And they showed me the drawings. And I was like, a tube top and a mini skirt the entire time? And they were like, well, yeah. And I said, well, it would have been nice to know. I don't know how it would have changed my
Did we ever
approach.
get an understanding as to why? Like, why was she dressed like
so
this?
the way they say it is because she was trying to escape, and her apartment, that's all she had in her apartment to escape, because they were in the process of packing up and
She chose
and
the best
leaving
running
the city.
clothes.
So yeah, she just dressed in whatever
All my
she
tactical
had.
gear was already packed.
Yeah, it was already all the
This
stuff you
was on the
needed.
floor by the bed, so I put it on.
I think that was one of the bigger criticisms probably around when that game came out, was the fact that a lot of people admired Jill because she was more of a real humanistic character put in a real situation, and she's forced to escape, and she's an actual cop, and she had the gear and stuff. And then I think when around the time 3 came out, and as much as everybody loved it, that was one of the things, is like, well, why are they, what do you call that? Sexualizing the character.
And I love the fact that she thought, I'll bring a sweater in case I need it, but I'll just tie it around my waist.
Yeah.
So,
And I'll never put it on because I won't need it. But also, she never, as a girl, you look at that and look at her running around and think, boy, that tube top stays in place. And she never tugs at it.
Yeah.
Like every girl you've ever seen with a tube top is always tugging it up or she never, it never moves.
It was a tactical tube top.
A tactical tube top.
Tactical tube.
Maybe it was armored. Oh, yeah, no, it's true.
It had some ballistics in there.
Yeah, just the whole
Ballistics armor or whatever.
Yep.
They did kind of so for the remake they did update her wardrobe a bit, so she's wearing black jeans and like
You could change it, I understand, to the original.
You could change it to as an option.
Yeah.
For fans of the original, but much more practical attire for the remake.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyways, so how long have you guys known each other?
Do I get to tell my story?
Sure.
Tell it.
No, it's not that. It's just I think. Alyson and I worked on the original X-Men series. Alyson voiced Jubilee, and I voiced Jean Grey.
Stupid jerk arcade manager. Hey! Watch where you're going! Even you can't heal this fast.
Don't bet on it, Red.
Sabretooth nearly killed you.
Someday I'll learn not to let my guard down.
I think that was the first time we met, and you were a teenager.
Yeah.
And I was like in my early, I think I was 32, I think. And I remember you coming in the room, and you were, I joke like Kid Alyson about this. She was in her goth phase. So she was very dressed up. And I remember thinking, oh, I have to watch my language about. Were you?
I was 18.
You were 18. Okay. So
by
for
that
some reason,
point.
I thought you were like 15 or
But
something.
I did have the like dyed jet black hair, and yeah, I was in a bit of a phase.
Yeah, I thought we should all be in our best behavior because a bunch of old, goofs in the room. And
Yeah. But we did a big, we all sat around the table out in the waiting area.
Oh.
And Sydney Iwanter came up, and he was the one. He was like, "Hey, just so you know, I didn't want you voicing Jubilee."
Whoa.
Okay.
said that to you?
Oh yeah.
That was rude.
Because it was actually, he was great at breaking me out of the Lydia voice.
I know. But don't you have any willpower?
Willpower?
That little voice inside your head that tells you when you're doing something wrong.
Because I'd been voicing Lydia.
Which was
for
on Fox
Beetlejuice.
Kids already.
Yeah, and he was so sick of listening to my voice from that show.
And wasn't he the president of Fox Kids?
No, he was
A producer with Fox Kids.
yeah. And he was like, I fought really hard not to have you on this show, but whatever you do, just don't sound like Lydia. And he was like, he put me through it to really break me out of that speech pattern. So it was good. It was actually
just
really
Was
good
that
for
your
me.
first job as Lydia? Or had you done voices before?
I'd done voices before. My first cartoon was Ewoks.
Wicket! Wicket! I picked these sunberries especially for you.
Great, Milani. I bet Charita would love some.
Oh,
Love
you're
it.
kidding.
Yeah. So, and George did that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Have you met George?
George Booza.
Oh.
George
okay.
Booza voices Beast.
Yeah.
on
Okay.
X-Men.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And he was Chief Chirpa
Okay.
in that.
And my
so.
first animation job was on Beetlejuice as one head of a two-headed monster, and the other head was Ron Rubin, who played Morph in the original X-Men.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I remember coming in and Ron's really hyper and he's very funny, does a lot of impressions. And he was like, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And then he did 5 impressions and, made the sound of a door opening. And I remember putting it in my hand on the other side of the glass. And he said, yes, Catherine. I said, I think I'm in the wrong place. And it took me a long time to feel comfortable doing cartoons.
Yeah.
And after that, because there's sort of different kinds of actors who do cartoons. There are the comedians who do impressions and and then there are voice actors who just do voice. And then there are actors like Alyson and I who we do on camera and we do voice.
Yeah.
So yeah, it took me a long time to feel comfortable doing cartoons.
I think you got the hang of it pretty quick, though. You were great because we even did another series together called, even though we didn't get to record together, 'cause it was a dubbing series. It was called Mr. Man and Little Miss.
Oh my God, I forgot.
Yeah.
There's three female
Three
actors
women to
and
cover
men.
like 104
We
characters.
each had like 17
Oh
or
my
20
God,
characters.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember everything.
No problem. Mr. Forgetful, remember everything.
Oh dear. I forgot to turn the lights off at home.
My friends will all have better suntans than me.
So we've worked on a lot of shows
Yeah, you
together.
guys have worked on a ton together.
Yeah, we have.
Close to you guys.
And Alyson has directed me in recent years.
Oh, yeah?
On nunchucks.
Yes.
Interesting. So
She was
Can we
very
say
funny.
nunchucks on camera? Nunchucks.
Nunchucks.
Why wouldn't you be able to?
I don't know. Sounds a bit.
nunchucks.
It was a kid's cartoon.
No, I know. There's too much word. And I know it's like a martial art thing, and I know it was like
Bruce Lee.
I guess that kind of, because that leads us into this question of, because we're going back into your early career and then over the years of, your friendship and working together, how did you get into voice acting and what inspired you both to do it? Taking it all the way back.
Nelvana was based in Toronto.
Okay.
And it was pretty small. And when Ewoks came about, I was sent on an audition just like for anything else.
Yeah.
And I got it. And the good thing with Nelvana, they really like to use the same people back when, in their early years. They loved their small pool of talent and
That's nice, yeah.
just would keep hiring the same people over and over again. So I did pretty much all of their cartoons. Now, didn't you work on Mr. TNT?
yes.
That was also a Nelvana show.
Yeah, it was like their first foray into live action.
That's really terrific, Sophie. I'm impressed.
Well, after our little talk last week, I'm trying to show more
More,
Initiative.
yeah, more what you said.
Yeah, well, they had done Edison Twins.
Oh, that's right. They'd done
did
the Edison Twins. And then they
this
did
was their
Mr.
big.
TNT with starring Mr. T.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I pity the fool. Pity anybody. That was kind of a weird show to work on. But Nelvana, you know, a lot of Americans don't realize it, but we're from Toronto and Nelvana was based. It's now called Chorus. It was absorbed by Chorus Entertainment.
Yeah.
And Nelvana is responsible for so many cartoons that you probably grew up with, and you didn't realize they were Canadians infiltrating your childhood.
Well, I mean, for me, you know, basically where I live, we have like a Canadian accent. A lot of people always ask me if I'm from Canada.
Really?
So it just sounds normal to me. A Canadian accent is.
Say about.
basic-
I caught your about. Yeah.
About.
Yeah.
Bag.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I just say that's how I talk. People are like, I can really hear it.
When you apologize, you say, I'm
sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, honorary Canadian.
That's what we got, yeah.
I do make fun of them all the time when I come up, because I'm from Metro Detroit, and we kind of get that accent down there, but whenever I come up here, I pick on them. I'm like, you're basically Canadian.
Can you believe that? He teases me about my accent, you guys.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Were you doing voice work at the time from when you were doing Mr.
when I was
TNT?
doing TNT? I don't know. Would that have been when Beetlejuice? That was 1980. Wow. That was like 1987, 86. No, 86. Because 87, I was doing something else. I was an alien on something else. So
no, we hadn't started.
Hadn't done that yet. Okay, so I was working on their live action stuff. But the best part about Nelvana is that you would go in, you know, now all auditions are self-tapes. We all have our own sort of studio setups at home.
Yeah.
I'm getting over being sick, so I sound like, and we've been talking for 3 days at C2E2 in Chicago, so I've kind of lost, I don't sound like anything anymore. But so back then you could walk into Nelvana, and this was the best part. You'd walk in and they'd call you in, and they wouldn't tell you what specific character. And you'd walk in, they'd have like a rogues gallery of pictures of all the characters and all the sides in front of them. And you could basically go around going, oh, I'll read for the bunny. Oh, and I think I have an idea for the beaver, you know, and they don't do that anymore. And then they got their own casting people, a specific and then it became, you are auditioning for this part.
Yeah.
But in the old days, because voice actors know better than anybody else what we can do with our voices.
Yeah.
And if we have ideas, if we have like a spark of an idea, seeing the picture. So that was really fun. So I did a lot of, I'm trying to remember what the first Nelvana cartoon.
Well, Beetlejuice, but before that, would you? No,
because Beetlejuice was my first cartoon, and so then I did, you know,
like your first regular role.
No, my first regular role. Was it on was that early Franklin or Babar or?
Yeah, it could be
those early ones. Berenstain Bears, remember those?
Oh yes,
I remember those.
Oh yeah, sticking around.
Bob and Margaret.
I did a few Bob and Margaret. Remember when she left and they were trying to rematch her voice?
Yeah.
And she had the weirdest accent ever.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, this is like shorthand voice actors over the years.
Yeah.
But I always did voice. I was always doing on camera and usually television series. But I always had voice work going on. I never said no to voice, even if it meant staying up all night shooting and going like with the X-Men and going in that last morning, going and recording.
Yeah.
Even though if I've been up all night, because it really carried me through a lot, like through being pregnant and through when there was nothing else around.
Yeah.
I always had 3 or 4 cartoons going at a time. And that was great.
It must be fun too, you know, all these different characters, you get to kind of embody all these different characters. You set, you know, how they are. So it must be interesting to always change, and now I'm this person, now I'm this person. Interesting, right?
Funny, right?
Yeah.
You have to go in your comfy shoes, and you have to wear makeup.
That's awesome.
And if you can add humor to it, and they take suggestions, you know, so you really do feel like you're a part of the process, and it was fun, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas everything else is so constricted.
Yeah.
You know, on camera stuff. So it's very freeing.
Yes.
I thought of a question just now.
Is it gone?
No. I'm bad, but I'm not that bad. So with the new Beetlejuice sequel coming out, if they decide to redo the show or bring it back, would you guys be interested in
a heartbeat?
You should be.
The juice is loose.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That would be so cool. I remember watching that show when I was younger too.
Yep.
So
Been a lot of. There was a rumor that they were trying to develop a sequel or a reboot of Roly Poly Oly, which I did for a number of years.
Oh, yeah.
Plucky let us know when the pie is ready to eat. It just has to cool a little while longer.
So there are a lot of, the age of streaming. If it worked 30 years ago, now they're going,
They're bringing it back, yeah.
Bring it, and I mean,
Everything's a sequel or a reboot now.
these streamers can stream the old cartoon,
Yeah.
Disney is with the original X-Men,
Yep.
and also have the reboot streaming at the same time. And you've got this sort of built-in nostalgic audience who are now watching it with their kids.
It reinvigorates your library. So if you're a big, broadcaster or production company and you own all of this content, and it's just kind of sitting there burning a hole in your archives. Well, by doing the reboot, if you do it correctly and don't try to reinvent the wheel.
One thing a lot of Hollywood needs to understand. Reinvent the
do
wheel.
it correctly.
There are reasons why it was successful in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I think with X-Men 97, they nailed it. It's this perfect fusion between what the original fan base loved and what new people are loving. And it's that perfect fusion, and they're really trying to do justice to all of the characters and as many of the original actors as
That's
possible.
nice, yeah.
Yeah, it's cool they got a lot of you guys back together for that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's aimed at adults. It's not aimed at kids. And I would argue, I don't know what I think about that, because I think the original cartoon was aimed at kids, but actually dealt with a lot of very mature ideas and themes that kids were sort of absorbing without even knowing it.
Right.
And adults were watching it too. And kids are going to watch the new one. I mean, it's an animated series on Disney Plus. It's a super. So
there was definitely a line that the original X-Men came up to.
Never crossed.
Never crossed.
Yeah.
There was certainly something there. And this show does step over that line a little. A little.
Yeah.
But it's more for teenagers as opposed to little kids.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it's stuff that that teenagers are going to relate to. Like, have you ever picked up a YA book?
Oh, no. I mean, they're very mature.
They're like 5 F-bombs within the first page,
Yeah.
which is like really graphic, and so it's like all of that stuff. I don't think it's too bad. Certainly not for teenagers.
No,
Kids have to be smart and
True.
maybe watch first and then decide if it's appropriate.
Or watch
if that,
with them.
Yeah.
Well, I guess with your teenager,
Watch it
what
first.
teenager wants to watch?
That is true.
Their parents.
Or if your
Yes,
kids are
absolutely.
younger, but they're also into the X-Men, just watch it first.
I mean, people come to us at cons. They've got their little I've got my 6-year-old daughter. I'm watching it
There
with
you
her.
go.
And I'm like,
Actually, to relate that conversation to Resident Evil, right?
Yeah.
I first played it with my older cousins when I was 8. And it's just like kids. I don't think my parents would have agreed with me playing it, but it was my older cousins. I looked up to them. They were cool. They had a PlayStation. My parents found out, they wouldn't let me play it. But just to all the kids that come up and they're like, "Oh, I love you in this show," and you're like, "Well, it's kind of a mature rated show."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wouldn't have fell in love with the Resident Evil series if I didn't play it when I was younger and so impressionable, right? And I think that's why these fandoms have grown so large. Like Resident Evil, the reason why there's such a massive audience for it is because a lot of these people played it when they were kids and have seen that for the first time. It just kind of left that impression on them. Yeah, so it's weird to see, like, oh, there's kids watching this mature show, but that I was a kid when I played Resident Evil, and I don't know if that was for
and
kids.
there's always somebody else's household that's going to let your kids do
Yes.
something that you won't let them do.
Yep.
what did you do at Johnny's house today, son?
Nothing. Just split
Kill
some zombie
zombies.
domes.
Yeah. Well, I don't think, because I know Capcom was always very careful. We didn't swear.
Oh, okay.
Like there were no F-bombs in the game.
That's true,
And there wasn't
We just
any
shot
sex.
people in the head.
Yeah,
no sex.
no
Violence
sex.
is okay.
Yeah.
Sex is verboten.
How dare you?
That's the American way, right?
It's true. I
Very
know.
much the American
Guns and zombies and freedom.
Interesting.
Sex, you have to die.
America right here.
Yeah.
That's where they drew the line.
Yeah. But it was ahead of its time because it was like really pro-weed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We got one right there.
Yeah.
Catherine's got it in her
We have
team.
an herb. We're going to be fine.
Oh, yeah. The green herb.
Yeah, we got the red herb over
Herb.
Herb.
The herb.
The herb.
there. The herb, yeah. And so I guess kind of going in then, from the start of your career and your, the early work you guys did, what brought you to Capcom, or how did they contact you about the roles of Jill and Claire?
You go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, we were doing the X-Men show, and Capcom was making the Marvel versus Capcom game.
Oh, yeah.
And they wanted the real cast voices to do that game. So that's how we actually first met Capcom. That was their first time.
That's right. I forgot about that. I forgot we did those first.
Yeah. So that's how the entire team first met the Toronto, both the voice pool as well as like the production people and the studio.
Okay.
And
so
then
that's when you got the job for.
So that's how Capcom met Susan Hart.
Yeah.
And they got to know the people.
She was the voice director on RE2 and RE3.
Yeah. And Paul Schubat, who was our engineer.
Right.
And I think Karen Gora as well helped with casting, all that stuff. So they came over to do the Marvel game, and then they got to meet everybody, and they decided, oh, this is great. You know, also the Canadian dollar is a lot cheaper and all of that stuff. So when they were doing Resident Evil, they decided to come back. We had to audition. Like I had to audition.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think they had a pretty good idea that they wanted me, at least some of the people did.
Yeah.
Because very much the description for Claire was like Jubilee's older sister. Just think she's kind of...
Yeah.
Who did you play in the Capcom games? In the Street Fighter? Was it Capcom?
It's Jubilee. And she has one line, and she very rarely shows up. I think she's like a sidekick for Wolverine, depending on the moment. She comes out, she's like, see fireworks.
See fireworks.
And that's it.
Oh, cool. Nailed it.
So it was good.
Yeah. Those characters didn't say much in those games. I remember thinking, because they wanted me to play, I played like 2 or 3 characters. I remember thinking, aren't they going to know? Then I realized, no, they're not going to know, because there's, they say like 1 or 2 words each.
Yeah, and the voice gets so compressed.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, with those, yeah. And so then, so when they approached you with Claire Redfield, did they have any like character drops or artwork about what she would look like, or is it just the description?
I didn't. So when I first recorded her, the art was fairly like there was an image.
There was an image
of her, but it was pretty rudimentary.
Oh, okay.
But she had like a brown ponytail. I think she was in a different colored outfit by that
Is
point.
it the Elsa Walker outfit?
But it wasn't. But she wasn't blonde.
No,
they'd already changed her to be brunette. And then when I went back in to do pickups for it, I got to see her more, and you could see like she slowly started to look a bit more like me.
I was gonna say, I think they might have.
But it wasn't until Code Veronica because for the Dreamcast, the visuals for that system were stunning for the time.
God, yeah, I remember that.
And it was when I went to go back in to do pickups for that one. And I remember Susan Hart coming out to get me to bring me in. She's like, have you seen her?
It's
I'm like, what? And she's like, it's you. I'm like, I thought it was supposed to be Liv Tyler. And she's like, and we watched the opening cutscene because they wanted me to vocalize to everything that was happening. So I did it to picture, and it was like, oh, okay. But it was Gun Survivor, Biohazard Gun Survivor in Japan. So I was over there because when Eric and I got married, and then I started to do work for his company, doing localization for Capcom games. We were over there a lot in Japan, and I remember going through, like, it was sort of an outdoor arcade by one of the train stations, and we happened to pass a billboard for Gun Survivor, Biohazard, and it's my face. Like it's Claire, but it's like even way more like she was a little bit more like one eyebrow raised and a little like my little kind of look. And I turn around, I'm like,
that's me.
That's my face. And he's like, we got to go. And I'm like, that's my face. And he's dragging me by the arm. He's like, you need to shut up. We got to go. We got to go. I'm like, right?
Like, I'm getting paid for the voice work, not for my face.
It was weird. It was a weird moment to see, like, to be in a completely different country and see the art even more looking like me than the stuff that was released. So it just caught me off guard. But what can you do?
I don't know that game. So that game is...
So Gun Survivor was based on like the Code Veronica game, but it's an arcade shooting game.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, it was like a first-person arcade game. It released with around the same time as Code Veronica. And yeah, I haven't got to play that yet though, but it looks interesting. It's one of those ones that are really rare.
Yeah.
Those arcade machines.
Yeah, because it was actually, I don't even know how they did it, because it's sort of a hybrid between RE2 and Code, because I think you've got Leon as well.
Oh, I'd have to go back and play that. I didn't know
I
Leon
think
was
Leon
in
was
it.
there. It might be Leon. Is
Oh,
it Steve?
Steve. It was
Is it
Steve.
Steve?
Yeah. Steve
Okay,
is like
because
Leon,
even
kinda,
like the
just more annoying.
artwork for Steve on the one that was in Japan, like way more like Leon than like
Yeah.
Steve.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was based on Code Veronica, but it was just a shooting game.
Yeah.
But those are fun.
Okay.
So a couple weeks ago, I was in OKC,
Yeah.
and there was a retro bar and arcade there. It was all done like the 80s.
OKC?
Yeah, Oklahoma City.
Oh.
And it's amazing.
Yeah.
And they had
Oh,
like
cool.
all of the fighting games in the back. So they had Marvel versus Capcom.
Yeah.
And
Oh, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
So you went back there on your machine and you just hustled all night, just being irritated.
I managed to survive the first round.
Okay, all right.
And then I died
Got
very
out of
quickly after that.
the proverbial alley.
But the owner did take a photo because he was like, "Okay, I got to get a photo with you."
Yeah.
And they had a drink called Beetlejuice, and they had a Garbage Pail Kids shot, I believe, and they even had like Sesame Street. They had a Big Bird one as well. So I'm like ticking off all these shows.
Did you try all of them?
Okay. Yeah.
Full of faith here.
Yeah.
How about you, Catherine? How did Capcom approach you about Jill Valentine?
Think it's not like they had me in mind. I don't think so. What happened was this came to me as a voice match. So they had done Jill Valentine. They'd done the first Jill Valentine, and I think it was anyway. When I was approached, they said, "We're not going to use the same actress from Resident Evil 1. We like her voice." But I found out later, I think she might have even been a high school girl in Japan, like an American going to high school there. So I listened to it. It was a voice match. And I'd done a lot of voice matches in my life. But I listened to this and thought, wow, I sound very much like this. So
Jill, you're all right.
Yes. Wesker is here. He's...
Oh, I know. Anyway, let's get out of here.
I thought, okay. So I voice matched it and they gave me the job. And I remember when I went in, I was so very conscious of doing a voice match. I didn't realize the weeks of work that were ahead of me. And so I actually had them play the reference all the time going, I'd like to hear a reference again. And they were like, don't worry about it. We like what you're doing. After like the first day, they're like, never mind. It's all okay. So I kind of relaxed after that. But that's really what it was. It was a voice match.
Oh, wow. Okay. And you definitely brought more character to the character then with that. And I think it was just you getting comfortable with it and them saying, we like what you're doing, just continue doing it. That kind of evolved the character.
It was also new to me too. And I was so aware that it was a voice match, but clearly that wasn't, I was in the ballpark and that's all they cared about.
Yeah.
So, but as a sort of OCD perfectionist voice actor, I was like, I just sound exactly like her.
Yeah.
And they didn't really care about that in the end. They just wanted it. It was all very, I really liked it when I read it. I think there were probably diary entries that they gave me to read.
Okay.
Because it read almost like a radio play.
It all began as an ordinary day in September. An ordinary day in Raccoon City. A city controlled by Umbrella.
Yeah. And the diary entries were fascinating. And it's funny, I was watching a playthrough the other day and I realized some of the sound was compressed. So some of the, taken out of context, like it was all very emotional. It was all very heightened and she's surviving and there's violence and it felt like a real acting job. But then I look at some of the voices in the game, some of the moments and it's kind of like, what's going on? Hey, Barry, are you okay? And the arm goes, and I'm like, hey, Barry, are you okay? No, he's not. He's bleeding. He's not.
It's you.
Barry?
Like so casual. So, and so they take whatever lines you did and they put them in whatever context they want to.
Yeah.
But the diary entries were something I was able to get a run at,
Yeah. That's cool. That was the voice match, and then it kind of led to that. And how different was that then from what you guys were used to doing, right? With the animated shows, then now going to a video game. Was that something that was jarring? Was it very similar?
We were talking about this a little bit earlier about how, because it wasn't always linear, and then you'd be doing a section and you're reading through the script. Like I would get the whole script in advance. And you read through and it's like, wait, didn't we just do this scene? But one thing would be different.
Just different. Okay.
Well, every time someone made a choice in the game,
Yeah.
it would change, but just slightly. So you
Yep.
felt like you were repeating almost the same dialogue with just tiny little changes. And that was again and again and again.
Yeah.
You know, to do that. So it was a bit like Groundhog Day, you know,
Oh, yeah.
honestly. And you think, God, are we out of this storyline yet? But let's move on. Does that mean, because it just endless repetition of it, you know?
Yeah. There's a lot of plot choices that would change in Resident Evil 3. That was kind of where they started having like these, the way you do things can change the course of the game.
Yeah.
But 3, they really added a lot of that to it.
A lot of choices.
And you can play it now to this day and maybe see something you didn't see when you played it years ago because they had so many variations to it. So I could see why that would be like Groundhog Day.
Addie in the car, and she was. We were talking about. I was talking about the Barry moment, which she goes, "Hey, Barry, you okay?" And he's like on the floor bleeding, and he said, I thought Barry only appeared at the end. I was like, well, this playthrough I was watching, there's Barry.
Yeah.
You know, minutes into it, and so I guess it's just the choice that you make.
Yeah.
And Barry appears.
He's not okay. He's dead.
She runs away. You know, the sound of her boots in that thing drives me crazy.
Oh yeah, Alyson.
Andrew.
Yes. How would you describe the evolution of Claire's portrayal, along with your relationship with the character herself, from early entries like Resident Evil 2, Code Veronica, to later ones like Dark Side Chronicles and Resident Evil Degeneration?
I think the character evolved in much the same way that the game systems and engines and visuals evolved. So there was a maturity that kind of ran parallel to what was happening with the gaming systems and the quality of the games and the products in general. You know, the earlier ones when we were talking about how it was kind of disjointed, right? Certainly a lot of dialogue, you'd see a scene and then you'd hear a line from something out of context that didn't really line up with the emotional intensity of the moment, right? But I find with each game, it got better. And certainly working on Dark Side Chronicles, that was, it was a great team. Like I remember working with Liam O'Brien, who was voice directing me for a lot of it. And it was intense. It was nice. Like they really wanted to go for a much grittier, more like film performance. And I quite liked working on that one.
We've got to get out of here fast!
I have one funny quick story because we were talking earlier about how what's great with voice work is you're in your comfortable shoes. You don't have to do your hair and makeup. Nobody cares what you look like. On one of the days for Dark Side Chronicles, I showed up. I had these like track pants. It was a matching outfit. It was pants and a vest. And I really liked it, but it was this crinkly nylon material.
Yeah.
So I'm in the studio. Now, all of the clients are in LA. So it's just me. It was at the old Claude Deschamps studio. Love that place. And Jeff Steigow was my engineer. So I'm in the room and Jeff's like, what's making that noise? And we finally realize it's my pants.
Yeah.
That was just the pants on the couch.
You took your pants off?
I took my pants off.
Oh my God.
Oh my god.
I had a problem.
So we had to like, he just told them because there was, I think at one point they had a camera for like, to try to do a video feed, a Skype every now and then. So he just said, that one isn't working. So he turned off the camera. And I had a sweater, a hoodie that I ended up tying around my waist.
Okay.
Like Jill.
Like Jill.
I did. I look, now we know. Now we know.
That's
like
where that came from.
her tactical gear was too crinkly. It was drawing the zombies to her. So she had to wear a mini skirt and a tube top.
Didn't make sound.
Yeah. So a good chunk of Dark Side Chronicles, I'm not wearing any pants.
There you go.
Just
The more you know.
You learned it here.
You've learned it here first, folks.
Yeah.
And that was been awkward recording without your pants, right?
It was I tried after, once I took them off, like I went behind and Jeff kind of turned around and I got I tied the thing around my waist first and then I pulled the pants down and then I was standing at the mic and he's like, he thinks it's hilarious, but he's also glad that, I was willing to, because he wasn't pressuring me to do it or anything like that.
Jeff, like 306 Jeff and it was Supersonics Jeff and
no. So not Jeff Wright. Other Jeff, who is with Wanted as well. Yeah. All engineers in
are named Jeff.
Toronto are named Jeff.
Okay, that's just the thing.
It's the thing. So other Jeff, who was originally at Claude Deschamps and then came over to Wanted. But anyway, he was very much a gentleman about it, but we still giggle about that.
That is funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something you wouldn't expect to do.
Well, yeah, during the pandemic when we're all working from home.
Yeah.
Right. And I used to just pretend that they want you to have, I remember having my iPad out with a script on it and the microphone, and then I had GarageBand as a backup, and they were like, and could we have you on Zoom in your phone? I'm like, no, because I'm in my pajamas.
Is that nice? You just
in my messy bedroom. So, but I'd always pretend that I'm so sorry. Camera, I can't keep
figure it out.
My Zoom.
It's the feed. It's pulling too much from the internet.
Yeah.
The audio isn't going to be good.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So what do you want?
Turn off the camera. Yeah.
So again, this one is interesting because we touched on this a bit in the interview we did a few years ago with you. But talking about Outbreak, right? You contributed greatly to the production of Resident Evil Outbreak, including directing the mocap and voice acting, helping with localization and more. What was it like partaking in these new areas of game development, and what were some of the challenges you had to overcome to make Outbreak what it is today?
Oof.
Look at a lot of questions.
That's
there.
a
One
lot,
question.
and Outbreak was a lot.
Oh yeah.
Like everything from we had to get the props, we had to build the set pieces because everything had to be the right measurements, right?
Yeah.
Because of the game design, the artists are building the world, so our mocap actors have to be interacting with the props and with each other in the exact right measurements that are going to fit within what's been designed for the game. So we'd get these tomes of storyboards with very specific measurements and prop design and all of that. And we set about figuring them out. We got to know a really cool guy, Chris Warlow, who did weapons rentals and replicas and stuff. So that was a lot of fun.
That's the first thing you directed? You never directed?
This was the first big mocap game that I directed.
But not the first voice directing you'd done.
No, because I did Zero, a bit of Zero before that, and Onimusha 2.
Did you?
Yeah. But for Outbreak, there was so much with it.
It's a massive game. There's so many different things and
you'd think that you were done recording, and then, so it wasn't until the end when they decided they were going to have this chat system.
Oh, yeah.
So all of a sudden we get 600 lines again for each character.
Yep. Oh my God.
Did you find anything new? Just do it! I don't want to die!
You should give that.
This is it! Did you find anything new? What? Hey! No shit!
Find anything?
Did you find it?
Give me something.
Listen.
It was massive. It was exhausting. It was also fascinating.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated the guys from Capcom allowing me to actually to have a say.
Yeah.
Because they were there and they would have a certain scenarios blocked out with the panels, how they wanted to shoot it. And I remember the one at the hospital. I remember there was a second hospital one.
Yeah. Okay.
So not the one with the doctor. It's the old guy kind of leads them to the hospital.
Yeah. And he sees the axe man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
That's
you.
the one. Okay.
Okay.
That's
Yeah. See, I'm not totally crazy. I remember. Okay. So, and the way they had it, sort of for the scene, it was kind of, I felt it very generic, and so I got out my pencil and I drew my little stick figures, and showed them the panels of how I would cut in on something and just the blocking and whatnot. And after once they finally understood what I was saying, because my drawing is really, really bad, they're like, oh yeah,
good.
actually. And then we would try it and they're like, yeah, let's do it. So that was
shaped
nice.
the game in other ways too than
a couple of times. Just a couple of times they actually allowed me to play with that. So I was very appreciative of that. When we were talking earlier, I think you've interviewed Craig Bernatowski.
I was going to actually bring that up. Yeah,
so before the Wesker thing, he was in Outbreak.
When I did Resident Evil Outbreak, they would record the voices, they'd edit them together, and then we would get in a room and they'd play it over the sound system and we'd act it out like puppets.
Did he talk to you about all that?
They touched on it. I wasn't part of that interview, but I believe they did touch on it a bit. But I just thought that was really interesting that now he is the new Albert Wesker in the Resident Evil 4 remake.
Soon, the sun will set on the age of man.
But he was in Outbreak working with you. Like, I just, that's crazy.
So that was right at the beginning of his career.
Okay.
So he voiced a few characters in Outbreak, but he was one of our regular mocap guys.
Okay.
Capcom loved him. He was he had like the perfect body and proportions and everything for their characters. So he did most of the mocap for Kevin and Kevin, who's one of the main characters in Outbreak. But then also when we had other, different scenarios had their characters as well. Like, was it Kate and the engaged couple or whatnot? It wasn't one of the playable characters.
Okay.
So in one of the scenarios, I think it was another one at a motel. Not the first one where you find the tapes.
Okay, yeah.
Not that one, but a different one. There's a couple, and I remember the female character's name is Kate because she ends up turning into a liquor.
Oh, the Regis liquor. That liquor was in the game. Yeah, it was a hotel too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Hellfire, yeah.
And like you hear the guy going, "I love you, Kate."
Yeah.
As she's like killing him, she wraps her tongue around his neck and like strangles him or whatever. So Craig did the mocap for that scene.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I was 8.5 months pregnant at the time.
Yeah.
So they had me, well, actually it was me, I was directing it. And everybody else was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Fine, I got this." So I was sitting at the top of the ladder.
Yeah.
And I had a rope down and I had it around Craig's neck. And I was pulling him because we wanted the real, and he was allowing himself to get pulled up off his feet. Like he was
into it.
He was really into it. Oh, Craig went like,
he went all out.
1,000%. He was great.
That's really cool. And that you were actually in more than just, directing, but you were writing storyboards, you were choking Craig with the rope, all sorts of things.
The localization too was taking, when you watch something either, let's say you're watching a Japanese anime or film and you can listen to the English dub or you can watch with the subtitles.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be differences.
Yeah.
There's always going to be differences. I think Ghost in the Shell is a great one to watch and really see the differences. Both are great.
Yeah.
Both have actually very different stories in certain parts.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, wow, that completely changes this moment, right? But part of the localization job was figuring out what the essence of what they were going for was, because sometimes we'd end up with these, word for word translations, and it was just loopy. It didn't make any sense. It was like, okay, what's the vernacular?
Yeah.
What's the subtext that we're going for here? And then, so we did a lot of script doctoring.
Yeah,
as well, just to make it a little bit more.
Did you find that when you were doing RE2 too, that some of the script you got was maybe a little too much of a direct translation from?
Sometimes, there was a little bit of that. It was a little clunky at times, but I didn't, because that was my first foray into a game, really, I didn't say boo. I didn't.
Really?
Yeah, I got really bossy after that, though.
I know. I was like, I was okay for the first day or two, and then I was like, are you actually what you're trying to say? I think.
Yeah.
I mean, just because it really was. Some of it was kind of awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of those awkward lines that you might have had that were just translated?
It was just that the syntax wasn't right, and it was, they're missing some prepositions. It was one of those things where you think, I think what you mean to say is, Yeah, I don't remember. I wish I'd kept the script.
Yeah,
all these
it
years.
would have been interesting to
Yeah.
see what it was and what it became. Yeah, definitely.
Don't shoot, I'm a human.
Don't shoot! I'm a human!
Lines
Yes.
like that are just
Yeah.
a little, it's like, is that what I would say?
That has become iconic though, but
Jill Sandwich.
Jill Sandwich, yeah, and there's a lot from Resident Evil
Yeah,
1
Jill
because
Sandwich.
they try to write it in a way that people would
Yeah.
understand it regardless if they spoke the language or not, because it was so
Yeah.
basic, and a lot of people
Yeah.
in Japan spoke English, and so they had to basically just dumb it down right to like the basic words.
So Pablo, you guys familiar with Pablo Kuntz, the original voice actor for Wesker in the first game? He was explaining to us about how when they were, because it was the first game and they want to appeal to both the Japanese audience and an American audience.
Yeah.
And he was saying a lot of times for the voice direction, it would sound so cheesy sometimes because they wanted the English to be very plain and simple for the Japanese audience to understand. So that's maybe kind of why some of those lines like that were in there.
Yeah.
At least that's how he was describing it to us.
Yeah.
The lines are fairly normal, but they're not perfectly normal, but not so bad that something has to be done here.
But it's just so out there that it becomes iconic. People remember it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It contributes to that.
Just like not knowing your name.
Yes.
Right? It's become
Just-
iconic.
Who are you?
What are we doing here? Hey everyone, my name is JJ. Hey, that was your part. Over the course of the franchise, Claire interacts with a myriad of different characters, demonstrating her strength, especially while tending to children such as Sherry in Resident Evil 2. She's also found herself in the presence of scheming, neurotic figures like Chief Irons, Annette Birkin, and Albert Wesker. What were some of your favorite character dynamics to engage with, and why?
Ooh, favorite character dynamics to engage with. I had a lot of fun on Code Veronica because that game I got to work with the other actors.
Okay, that's
so we
nice.
actually got to record chunks together.
Yeah.
You didn't record with anybody else when you were doing the earlier games?
No.
Really?
No, I think I had maybe one scene that I did with Paul for RE2, but most of that game I'm by myself.
Right.
Yeah, but with Code Veronica, they let me do all of my stuff with the other actors. Also, because the guy doing Steve Burnside, he'd never done any of it before, so
Okay.
he was very nervous.
Oh.
So we just kind of
Yeah.
chatted, and I sort of helped him out in terms of like when he'd be like, "They're saying I'm popping my peas. What is that? Like, I don't even
What does that
understand." I'm like, just go into the mic, and just
Yeah.
like drop your chin a little,
okay.
try to soften. You'll be fine. Just things like that, right?
Yeah.
So he was really sweet. And I think, obviously the scenes with Alfred,
Oh, yep.
with Peter, like
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun. Like, I think I probably had the most fun doing that stuff.
That must have been, wacky, right?
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was Code Veronica, then you had a lot more than what you in Resident Evil 2. You were actually working with her.
Yeah. Which
get
I enjoyed a lot more.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now for the Bob questions.
Uh-oh.
Okay, Alyson, you're going to really like these questions. These questions come from Row Team member Bob.
There he
There
is.
he is. Bob asks, I'm going to read these like Casey Kasem.
Right.
Bob asks, Alyson, how big was the big comfy couch? Was the big comfy couch actually comfy? Was it technically a couch? And can you still do the clock stretch from the big comfy couch or any of the dances?
Good question.
All right. So, first question. The couch is approximately 10 feet wide end to end from the end of the, the curved
Wow.
arm.
Yeah.
About 7 feet tall at the very top of the back, and about 4.5, 5 feet deep.
Okay.
It was pretty comfy, especially like the first one, because they'd had it for so long, and it had lived in Cheryl's house. She had teenagers who
broke it in.
Yeah, partied a lot on that couch.
You got a couch that big, you got to use it, right?
So it was very well broken in and quite comfortable. Technically, yes, a real couch, but a real couch that had pieces that you could change up. So under, like Bob Bob Stutt, other Bob, who puppeteered Molly, he would actually be inside the couch, underneath.
Okay.
And then there was, for what the cushions that I would sit on would go on, there was a big wooden plank, but they could switch it out. There were 3 separate places that they could switch out. So like if I was doing pulling something out of the couch, they would put in the open board, so I could just reach down in and pull things out. But if I was going to jump on the couch, they would have the board back in. And if Bob was under there puppeteering, then the board was out, or like a specific cutout hole, and then there was a cushion that had a hole cut into it.
Okay.
And so he would be there, but it's still technically a couch. Yeah.
Shouldn't you say Chesterfield? It was a Canadian show.
Chesterfield, sofa, couch. Yeah, the big comfy Chesterfield doesn't.
On this?
No, the Davenport, the Chesterfield.
You know what? Just take your keys. I don't know what the you're talking about.
Seasons did you do of that show?
I did 6 seasons. So we shot from 92 through 96 and then came back in 2002. Yeah.
Oh, it's funny. We were all doing weird
We were all doing the weird
Yeah.
series at the same time. And then we'd meet in the lunchroom at the studio, Sounds Interchange, and all kind of commiserate about like the crazy stuff that was going on set. Yeah. So you had asked about the clock stretch.
The dances and that.
Yeah. So yes, I can, but it usually takes me about 2 weeks to recover after.
Yeah, that was hard to do. I could not do that.
Well, Bob, now you know.
Yeah, and for anybody who wanted to know, now you also know.
Oh, that's great. Okay, now we got a bunch for you.
I hope I can answer them. You have tremendous recall. I was sitting here going, oh my God, I don't remember half of what was going on back then.
You had a lot going on.
Well, I had a baby. I think that was
That will take all your time, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I slept. I shot a series nights and I had a baby, and I don't think I slept more than 2 hours at a time for about 3 years.
Yeah.
So I really, if my memory is vague about some things back then, it's because of that.
Yeah. So you've established yourself as a reoccurring presence in the voice acting industry through animated series like Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, Roly Poly Oly, and like Alyson, X-Men, the animated series as Jean Grey. You've also voiced Storm and Psylocke across multiple X-Men video games as your first roles in the gaming industry. How did your experience with these titles, if at all, influence your portrayal of Jill Valentine in the original Resident Evil 3?
Woof.
Yeah, a lot.
Well, interestingly enough, I mean, a lot of the cartoons that I had done, for instance, before X-Men, were little kid cartoons.
Yeah.
And so X-Men was one of those, X-Men was an anomaly at the time. It was more like a radio play. It read more like a script that way. And for me, one of the reasons I wanted to do Jill Valentine was because with the diary entries and other things, it felt like a similar type thing. It didn't feel disjointed. It felt that there was a through line and a story, and that she had this, there was tremendous emotion, and she felt like a real person, and the diary entries really helped that. I'm sorry, I don't remember what the question was. I listened to the whole preamble and then thought,
basically all the work that you've done previously, how did that influence your portrayal as Jill Valentine?
See, X-Men was probably more helpful with that than anything else.
Yeah.
Because all the other cartoons, I mean, I was doing a lot of on-camera series at the time. One long one for like 92 through 96. And so as we were doing X-Men, but doing that kind of sort of more realistic and emotional, you actually needed to act.
Yeah.
And I felt like Jill on RE3 was more like that too.
Yes.
Although now that when I watch, playthroughs and I see where they're kind of misplaced or they've compressed my voice and it feels like they're sort of out of place, I'm like, ooh. That's the other thing. You said you were in it mostly alone. And I remember being alone a lot, like feeling kind of insane after a while because I was alone so much and just other people behind the glass, But they would bring actors in, like they brought Vince in for like 3 or 4 days and moved somebody else in there, and then he was gone, and then and they brought other people in for a day or two here and there. But I did really feel like I was alone most of the time. And usually when I do that, if I'm doing cartoons, like X-Men was the first couple of years we did X-Men when there were group records, which was kind of insane. But you had like 8 or 9 actors lined up in a not a studio even nearly this big, and with your stools and everything, and it was like 8-9 hour records
and smoking.
Actors. What? Well, let's ask the technicians. Do you think it's morally right to promote smoking to the youth of America? They're biased. That's a mistrial.
In the booth.
I had to ask people not to smoke in the studio. That's
crazy.
Is that?
Yeah.
But so, you know, there is a sort of hearing what the other actors are doing is really important. And there's always that delay. So even if you're standing next to him, I'm standing next to Alyson and her mic is next to mine, she'll say a line. I can't actually respond to it right away. You have to kind of wait 1 mosquito, 2 mosquito.
Okay.
So it's not all that. It is spontaneous in that I'm listening to how she's doing it. But when you're alone and the lines are just, you know, out in the air. So I would always make the voice directors read with me. If there was dialogue in a cartoon, I do that now. And I know they dread me coming in. It's like, oh God, now I have to read with her.
To read again.
Because also they've been in with the other actors, so they kind of know what the how those other actors did those lines.
Yeah.
So, you know, just being alone as Jill, I found that a lot of those lines are out of the air. So they'll say, oh, you're here, you're doing this is what's happening here, go. And then do 3 versions or whatever it was. And it felt kind of lonely. So it was really great when they bring other actors in. And I think those are the better parts of the game, is when people are talking to each other, because it makes sense. You know, we're in the same world.
I mean, I was going to say originally being alone, did that help to your character? Because you're like, I'm going insane. And did, you know, but...
Yes and no. I mean, and there's a part of me as an actor too. Those group records take a lot of energy because they last for hours. Whereas if you go in by yourself, you're in your comfy shoes, you walk in, you can do everything in like 45 minutes and leave.
Yeah.
So there's that.
That's kind of nice too. You know,
but you want to hear what other world, that we're in the same world as the other people.
It's like you're a piece of a puzzle.
Yeah.
And you want to be with the other puzzle pieces because you know you're just part of it.
Yeah.
Fitting into the whole group. So I always
for a while, you know, even everyone's I don't need to do that every time, but hearing the world and how everybody else is approaching it is really helpful.
Yeah, it helps you embody the character in the situations that you're dealing with. I could definitely see that.
I don't think I was ever in the studio with Tony Rosado, who played Nemesis, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think I was ever in the studio with him. I don't know. He didn't say much except stars.
Yeah. It's very iconic.
Yeah, I know it is. But I don't think I was ever in with him. I think there were only 2 or 3 actors that I ever actually was in the same room with.
Okay. That's how they used to do it then. Yeah. Splitting everybody up. And now it's very different. It seems like everybody just records together like you guys have done with other projects.
Yeah, so Jean Grey really kind of informed Jill Valentine in a lot of ways.
That's interesting to know.
I feel strange, like I'm someone else. Like I could reach out and touch the moon and crush it in my hand.
I'm sorry about your daughter, but there isn't going to be any rescue. We have to get out of here.
Okay, so during Resident Evil 3's intro, Jill describes Raccoon City as a place corrupted by the unjust and powerful antagonistic enterprise Umbrella. Despite this, after the events of Resident Evil 1, Jill and fellow STARS members demonstrate the courage to butt heads with Umbrella's oppressive political pawns, dirty cops such as Police Chief Brian Irons. How familiar were you with this and the events of Resident Evil 1 before voicing Jill? And did this inform your portrayal of the character? I think we kind of touched on this already, but...
Get a lot of information. I'm going to be honest with you. No, I mean, I sort of did a bit of digging myself to see how she was portrayed, what the character looked like. It's very important to me what the character looks like. And because they didn't have any drawings or renditions for me so I just kind of went from the first game. That's why I assumed she was clothed when I did it. But mostly when you're standing at the mic, you can't worry about too much. What you're given usually is the immediate context of your lines. You're here, this is the location, this is who you're talking to, this is what's happening around you. So no, I was not aware of all the, I was aware a little bit, the basic plot line, right? But no, that's why it was so fascinating being in the car with Addie today driving, because got to ask all kinds of questions about the origins of stuff. I didn't know about the novels that existed. And so that was not available to me at the time.
Yeah.
So it was very much you're present. This is the character. Here's what's happening. Go.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, you nailed it, and the character has become such an iconic character over the years, and she's very complex, and there's a lot to her. It's interesting they didn't give you all that information, but like you said, that's you just get, what do I need to do now? What are you looking for?
What do I need to know?
And it worked. It worked
I need
really
to know
well.
what's going on.
Yes, definitely. Now,
There are moments in that when I watch the playthroughs now, there are moments when like when she's in the chapel and she's lying down and he comes back and he's like, Jill, and she's like, yeah, I'm okay.
Hey, are you okay?
Yes. Barely. What's going on?
No way!
I love these things. They're just so out of the blue.
Yeah. So now when you did see your character, you're like, oh, I wish I would have seen the character before I recorded it, so I could have been shivering every time I said something.
Yeah, wasn't aware of the exact. Well, I mean, because of the tube top.
It's cold.
Yeah, like as cold as it is in here.
Yeah. You're talking now. It's
Brr. But I actually a little bit more context would have been helpful.
Yeah.
In terms of adding a little more layers and personality to the lines, because sometimes the lines seem to be taken out of context, like they were almost recorded in another context and put there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they seem slightly out of place. And it's acting is imagination. So when people say to you, here are the circumstances, and you got this big scary thing following you and jumping out at you. I wasn't quite prepared that when I first saw Nemesis.
Oh yeah.
It's just terrifying.
I don't
And
think anybody is.
yeah, and so I'm asking this in the car. What things that have the one claw on the end, and I think they had 6 legs. I'm pretty sure.
The
drain demos.
Drain demos, yeah.
Drain demos?
Drain demos, brain suckers is another thing they call them.
I don't think they described everything. When you're standing there, you're standing at the mic. They go, "You're running away. You're worried about this. Oh, we need 3 screams." When they do so at the very end of doing these games, they used to call it damage. I don't know what they call it now. So because you can damage your voice doing it. So they wait till the end of the very end of the recording. So you do. I think I did it for about 3 days. And you do like screams and impact grunts and effort noises and you always do like we're going to do 3 sets of them, short, medium, long, mildly intense, more intense, really loud, So they don't those noises and reactions that you see in the game were not necessarily given to me in context. So they have this whole library of damage noise. And they decide what is appropriate when the game is, up and done.
Okay.
Yeah.
What noise they're going to insert or what reaction they're going to take from me. So all those reactions were not necessarily done as we're going through the script. Going, okay, now this demon is going to now Nemesis is going to jump out at you. They just take one of those screams and judge which one is appropriate. And I was really worried because all the fighting noises. I'd lost sleep over this because of the guys from Japan, from Capcom.
Yeah.
And I was worried about the fighting noises, and I didn't want to sound like I was doing bad martial art noises. And so I twisted myself in knots because when I was doing stuff in the booth, especially alone, they'd all be looking at me, and I'd say a line, they'd all go on their laptops, and I was like, oh my god! So I felt very much under the glass.
Yeah.
And so when we got to the damage, I really twisted myself in knots not to sound like that. And I could tell they were all kind of a bit disappointed. Like you could see, they were very expressive. And I'm sure they didn't realize I was watching them like a hawk. They were watching me like but I was watching them. So I said, well, please, go ahead.
Yeah.
And they were so excited. And one by one, they went down the row and went, hey, yeah. And I was like, okay. So you've just given me permission to make bad martial art noises.
Perfect.
So that kind of freed me up, and then the damage went. But I was just dreading this 3 days of fighting and stuff because partly because of that.
Yeah, we just had OG cast here, and Eric, the guy that played Wesker in the live action cutscenes, he was saying he did stuff like that for Metal Gear Solid when he was living in Japan, but not for like any of the main characters. Maybe, but it was just like grunts and damage noises.
Yeah.
And he had a funny story about how he was like, "Ugh." And then the guy in the recording booth that was smoking his cigarettes was like, no. He's like, what's wrong?
And the guy said, no, 2 minutes before dying. Like, you idiot, that was a minute. And we could do the 2 minute one.
What is that? 2 minutes
Exactly.
before dying.
Oh, I suppose the sound you're making is 4 to 5 minutes?
Yeah. Were you ever approached by Capcom after the release of Resident Evil 3 to reprise your role in any other entries like RE1 Remake, Umbrella Chronicles, RE5, or even the RE3 Remake?
No, I mean, I guess they were still in Toronto, right? Because you were still working for them.
Yeah, but once they, so not for any of the remakes, and certainly not for, like every other part, like Chris and Leon, and they all went to LA. They recast with people in LA.
Yeah.
I was the only one that they kept in for Darkseid.
Yeah, so the answer is no. I mean, I don't know why, but as you said, if they went to LA, and I also think later on in the remakes, they went non-union. Did they not?
Yeah.
Paul Haddad is a legend in the Resident Evil community and is deeply missed by fans around the world. He, like you both, voiced characters in X-Men, the animated series, such as Quicksilver and Byron Cali.
That murderer! Magneto will pay with his life!
Sir, the repairs to the NASA shuttle are nearly complete. The astronauts will be ready to depart within 12 hours.
As well as characters in shows like Bubbar and Free Willy.
Sorry, Mr. Elephant. You'll have to get off now. This is not a toy.
Sorry I made you go out before you were ready. But when you are ready, just let me know.
Have you had a chance to meet with him during your work on any of these projects or otherwise? If so, what was your relationship with him? And do you have any stories to share about him regarding his experience with the Resident Evil franchise or other works he has collaborated with you on?
My story, I mean, yes, I knew Paul over the years. And I really, really liked Paul. But when I first met him, I went to McGill University in Montreal, and I did a lot of theater at McGill. And then after I graduated from McGill, left McGill, I went to National Theatre School in Montreal. So I went back to see a show at McGill when I was at the National Theatre School, and Paul Haddad was in it. And I don't think I went backstage, but somehow, because we all lived in the same area, I think the way I remember it is I was in a store and I ran into him and I said, I saw you. And of course, he would know who I was because I'd just gone through the McGill program and got to the National Theatre School, which was kind of a big deal that I got in, and I said, you should audition for NTS.
Oh.
You should go to the National Theatre School. And he was like, oh, okay. I said, you should audition because he was excellent in the play. And he did. And years later, he said, and after you said that to me, and I did audition and I got in. So I sort of feel like I was there, at an interesting time to be able to give him a bit of encouragement because he was really so good in this play. How some people go to see some theater productions in universities and some people are like, meh, and some people just stand out as being like, oh, crap, he's great, So yeah, I went up to him in a store and just said, you really should audition for NTS.
Aww.
Yeah. Yeah, and he thanked me for that years later. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. How about you, Alyson?
First time I ever worked with Paul was on a show called Road to Avonlea. So it was actually live action.
Mr. Simpkin?
Yes, Miss Purdy.
Mom wants to know if you already took the Morris baby to the orphanage.
Of course not. I left her in charge. I certainly did not take the blasted baby anywhere.
Well, somebody did, because the basket's gone all right.
And then we did Free Willy and a bunch of shows together.
Was Free Willy a cartoon?
Yeah.
I did not know.
Yeah.
Who was the voice of Willy?
That was Paul.
Paul was the voice
Well,
of
Paul
Willy.
was the main guy, and yeah, I was a Lucille the Seal.
Jesse, I understand you. Finally! I was going loony trying to stay calm.
Willie, you are such a show-off. I mean, splashing in the healing pond like an overgrown guppy.
Yeah.
Lucille.
Yeah, Jesse Thompson directed that one.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But, and then it was funny because when we did RE2 together, like we got to do a little bit together.
Yeah.
And we'd certainly see each other going in and out of the studio as well. And then when Capcom came back for Code Veronica. I was out one night with Eric, who was my first husband, and we started hanging out on Code Veronica. But we didn't let anybody know, obviously. Didn't want any of the Capcom people to know, but we were at a rave and Paul Haddad was there.
That's a rave.
Yeah. It was an after hours rave. He was like the only person that knew that Eric and I were together at the time. Yeah. So, but he was a sweetheart. He was just like,
lovely guy.
Oh my goodness. Just lovely, lovely guy.
What they told us about Americans before Glasnost, about how all of you are selfish monsters, is totally bogus.
Well, I guess dudes are dudes all over the world.
What a face too. Just like, but just this lovely, kind face, and beautiful, but just super sweet. And then, before he died, he went through a bunch of other stuff too. He went through some stuff with his throat.
Yeah.
Lost his voice, and it was just like, was just like, I think the medication that he had been taking from what he went through with his throat was just like, it was making him just like very, very on edge. And I think also because he'd lost his voice, he lost some work.
Yeah.
They'd replaced him and whatnot. And it was just, it's sad how the industry just kind of rolls over you and leaves people behind.
Well, if you lose your voice, I mean, it's, what can you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's your tool, really, especially voice work.
Yeah.
I know, and some other actors I know who, one particular actor who had to have part of his tongue cut out because of cancer, was just terrified because that was his livelihood.
Yeah, what do you do?
Yeah.
But he used to message me on Facebook, and he would tell me there were some fans that were just really, really dedicated and that had found Paul. And those fans were like, they were giving him life.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, like just the messages of support and kindness that he would receive from specifically Resident Evil, like for doing Leon's voice. It meant a lot to him. And, he would share the messages and send them along and just be like, lots of hearts in it. And it was lovely to see.
Definitely. And we got to play Resident Evil 2 with Paul. And to me, Paul was always the hero I looked up to. He portrayed, Leon Kennedy. And so that's what I idolized. And to get to have that experience with Paul was incredible. But it was just Paul himself, getting to know him, how humble he was, and how excited he was to find out, how important Resident Evil is to so many fans around the world. You could tell it made him excited, and he was just
did you know him?
We reached out and we had brought him on to play Resident Evil 2 with us on the channel a few years back.
Yeah.
And that was his first time actually playing through the game. He had never played it before. He said he didn't have a PlayStation. Capcom didn't give you guys the games, after you were in it.
Yeah.
And so he got to watch that, and we got to experience that with him for the first time. And he was just so kind-hearted, so humble about everything. And you could just tell that, talking to him with, all of our chat and everything, he's just excited to see, that so many people love him and appreciated his work.
It brings it out of me. And I swear to God, I have chills right now, not by just this wonderful experience, but the fans, I can feel them, their spirits everywhere. And for Tony, it's so heartwarming. I can't tell you. I'm almost going to cry. Like I'm not being. It's wonderful that all this can come together like this. Mm-hmm. My mom says to me, I say, "Mom, I love you," and she says, "I love you more." Well, I love you guys more. Okay.
And he'll definitely be missed, but he definitely brought something to the series, that I think lives on, in Leon Kennedy. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he was a gentle, lovely guy.
Yeah.
A really good actor.
Oh, yeah.
A really good actor.
Yeah.
On stage and on camera, too.
My goddess protected you. It will always be with you.
Come on, time to leave.
Now? What's wrong? Is something following us?
We have to go. We don't have any time to waste.
Go? Where?
Hey, it's up to us to take out Umbrella.
All right, this next one's for you, Catherine.
Yeah.
Resident Evil 3 and so this is actually my experience with the game. I was probably 10. It was 1999. My mom rented Dino Crisis from the video store, and it came with a demo of Nemesis. So that's kind of how I was introduced to Resident Evil.
Really?
Yeah. So Resident Evil 3 and Dino Crisis were both released in 1999. You and Stephanie Morgenstern both voiced characters in Sailor Moon, as well as voiced the main protagonist in each game. What was it like working with her and getting to know her? Since the release of Resident Evil 3 and Dino Crisis, respectively, have you had a chance to reconnect with her over your roles in these franchises?
You're not gonna believe this. He was attacked by some kind of dinosaur.
Well, let's see. I have a many-parted answer. Well, not many parts, but a multi-part answer. So one is that I actually do remember doing Sailor Moon.
I'm Sailor Venus, and you're burnt toast.
Because they used to. It was called. Oh my God! Now I can't remember the Rhythmaband.
Rhythmaband system. Yeah.
So the Rhythmaband system. So do you know the Rhythmaband system?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so when you're dubbing stuff, they did have if I remember, they had a monitor in the room, but you never looked at the monitor. So it was painstaking. So it was through like a projector, and it was projected onto a strip on the back wall. So the glass is behind you. You're looking at the back wall of the little studio, and you can. There's a red light, and someone has painstakingly written out each part. So you could have as many as 4 or 5 parts, one below each other. We each had our own like line of dialogue, and literally someone would handwrite this stuff so that if you came and when it went past the red light, that's when you started, and you could have a word that went last, and so you knew how long the word would last. So you could literally have 5 actors in there. And when they started, you just knew which line of dialogue was yours, and we would just go at it. So I actually remember being in there with Stephanie Morgenstern at one point. I actually kind of missed the rhythm band. It was very primitive and yet very expressive. Like it kind of got a lot of really good results, and you could move really quickly. But I do remember, like most voice actors, unless you were doing a group record, mostly you kind of socialized in the waiting room, waiting to go in. And so I would run into Stephanie and at this little studio 306, was my favorite studio in Toronto. It's where old couches go to die.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. No, they're all sticky and new. I almost didn't recognize it. But she came in one day and we were talking, and she had just been to a pitch meeting with her husband. They were pitching this idea for a live action series, and they got it. They got greenlit, and it became Flashpoint. And it ran for like 5 years, 6 years.
You have to put the gun down.
Give me gun down.
Ostavi pistol.
And I did a Flashpoint and saw her when I was on there, and then
I'm sending all this to the paramedics as soon as they get there, which will be in 2 minutes. Okay.
She's doing some other series now. I can't remember.
I'm not sure what she's doing. I worked with her on Yin Yang Yo.
Yang, we're the last Wu-Fu nights in a dojo with 2 sleeps. We're just gonna have to make do with what we...
She was great as Yin. Scott McCord was
that's
Yang.
right. Yeah,
Martin Roach was on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really funny cartoon. Yeah, she was terrific.
She's great. And she's very, very nice.
Yeah.
And very smart.
Oh, yeah. But that show, Flashpoint, I mean...
She never looked back. I don't think she's been doing cartoons ever since then. She's strictly a showrunner, creator, writer, producer.
Yeah.
For live
Brilliant
action
team.
TV.
Two of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I've had a chance to message her, and she seemed like a very, very nice person. So.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Cool. You want to talk about people who aren't very nice?
Yes. Yeah, actually. Give me a few names.
I just remember one who shall remain nameless.
Okay.
This is a voice actor story, but I was in the waiting room waiting to go in to do a regular cartoon that I did. And there was an older gentleman who had been doing voice for years. And sometimes on the table when you went in, they would have like a suggestion list of impressions that different characters they could use in the episode. So they had like a list. The male list was like this long, and it was presidents and comedians and whatever, all these voices. And the female list was like 3 names. It was like Queen Elizabeth, Phyllis Diller, and I don't know, Catherine Deneuve or something. It was like 3 names. And I remember sitting there going, well, I think it's because there are more authority figures that everybody knows. Satire is aimed at authority figures and visible ones that you can see and hear and get a lot of airtime, and most of those are male. And he said, no, I disagree. He said, I think it's because women's brains are smaller and they can't do impressions. And I remember thinking, I thought he was joking, and he wasn't. He's the one who used to dress in the American flag outfit. Do you remember? Oh, you'd know. Wow. Anyway, it was such a clear, memory. And there were so many more roles for men, too, in cartoons than there were for women. And so I'll just always remember that. It was...
Because I got a response from someone, a similar situation, conversation, and someone was like, it's just that women aren't that funny.
Oh, God.
That was the response that I got.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Like, so rude.
Gilda Radner. Hilarious.
I know. I know. But we fight against that a lot in cartoons.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there are way more roles for male actors. Still.
I think that's kind of going back to Resident Evil. One thing about it is starting off early, there's a lot of strong female characters that they had in the series.
Yeah.
A lot of leading roles.
Well, the first playable female character. We came from X-Men, where all the women they're powerful mutants, They've got superpowers and they have their own storylines. They're not sort of an adjunct into other people's storylines.
Yeah. Unique, interesting characters.
Yeah, we've been lucky that way.
Yeah.
Magic School Bus. Do you know the original Magic School Bus? I had like 5 auditions for Miss Fizzle. And then they gave it to Lily Tomlin.
Lily Tomlin, yeah.
But I remember thinking, why didn't you just give it to Lily Tomlin in the first place? Why make me go through that?
Yeah.
Seatbelts, everyone! Please let this be a normal field trip. Ride on the Magic School Bus.
I think, so they'll do, sometimes when they don't have the celebrity voice locked down, they have to do auditions just in case. Right? Because we struggled for a long time trying to get the new Ms. Frizzle. And we were like halfway through recordings. And when we finally landed Kate, so that we did all these batch recordings in New York. But she's fabulous. But she was also, she's very much like, I'm here. She doesn't want to be noticed or seen by people. She comes in her, track pants or whatnot. And there would be this whole room of clients like all smiling at her, like big wigs from, the different networks and the properties. And she'd come out of the studio into the control room and everyone would be like, you're doing great. And she's like, mm-hmm. And then she kind of snakes her way to me and she's like, I'm going to go to the washroom. And I'm like, okay.
I'm going to go hide in the
she's just like, I'm going to go downstairs. And she wouldn't talk to anybody else because it was just so overwhelming, I think.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm just going to go downstairs. I'm like, okay, I got you. And everybody else is like, what'd she say? I'm like, she's like taking 5 minutes to go to,
But that's, so many comedians are not on all the time.
Yeah.
And they're actually introverts. And then this allows them to.
Yeah. Well, especially because we would do it on a Monday. And so she would have she would have performed Saturday Night Live.
Stayed up all night.
And Saturday, or Sunday morning, gone to bed finally. And so it was like, the start of her week and just like very chill, very just awesome lady.
But not the person you were thinking of.
You were thinking of Kristen Wiig?
Kristen Wiig, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. She cracks me up.
They're all hilarious.
Yeah.
Bridesmaids?
Yeah.
I love the Lady Ghostbusters movie.
Uh-huh.
So anybody who didn't think it was funny, again, check yourselves. It's very, very funny.
I'm just thinking of this one scene from SNL where she was in it with Bill Hader, and Bill Hader played this like old sports announcer. It was like a Herb something, and he would just walk up to Kristen Wiig and be like, "All right, you want to tell me what you thought about this?" So Kristen Wiig is just like,
Tell me, sir, how's a fella like you fit in all this?
For X-Men 97, what was it like being able to come back to these characters and then, well, I guess not these characters. You guys both voiced different characters this time around. So what was it like being able to come back and then also changing up roles?
Shall I go?
Yeah.
So I want to hear it.
So, How do I talk about this? I couldn't. None of us could say anything we started recording this 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And we couldn't say anything because we all signed NDAs. But for like 2 years, the internet thought that I was coming back as Jean Grey.
Yeah.
Which, that's not a great leap of imagination. So, and I wasn't allowed to say I wasn't. My IMDb page said that I was, and I couldn't get it off there. So they made us audition. We had to go and audition for these parts that Alyson is a different story. Alyson, had a very sort of potent reason for not, she announced that she wouldn't ever, even if it was rebooted, long before they announced it was going to be rebooted, that she wanted an Asian, American actress to play the role. I didn't even know that Jubilee was Asian. Mm-hmm. And 5 years of that show, we only saw her adopted parents.
Who were white.
And apparently there was only one moment where in some birth certificate or something it said people could see Asian. So I didn't even know she was Asian. So that was Alyson's choice. It was not my choice not to come back as Jean Grey. So they had us all, except for Alyson, because she already said she wasn't going to do it. They had us come back and audition for our roles twice. So the first time I got the sides, they sent it to my agent, and I read the dialogue, and I immediately recognized the dialogue as being lifted from scripts from 30 years ago. But they changed the names of the characters to like Ted and Lisa or something. But it was clearly Jean and Cyclops, right? So I decided, well, I think I know what they're doing. They want to know whether we can sound like that again 30 years later. So I got the clips off the internet and I sent them to Jim Davidson. So Jim Davidson is a sound engineer. He worked on the original auditions with his father, Joe, who died many years ago. And the reason we look like that is that Jim actually died last fall at a very young age. He was a great guy, but he worked on the initial auditions. So he was very involved with the series. And so I went to him in his studio and I did a voice match. I voice matched myself. So I uploaded the videos. And he had them in my ear, and I would do a take, and then I'd listen to the video, and then I'd do another take, and then I'd listen to the video again. We did this for like an hour and a half, and until he and I both, it's like when you're tuning a guitar, and you hear that there's no dissonance between the note that you're playing and the note on the string in the guitar. So it was an interesting process, and I know that I voice matched myself exactly from 30 years ago. So I sent that off, and then I got a call back. I thought, okay, getting a call back. And it was new material, and I got very little direction. And the direction was a little confusing. And then they didn't ask me to do it. So I don't know why. The answer is that somebody didn't want me to do it. And I don't know why, and I don't know who. And I was kind of devastated, to be honest, because I really identified. I didn't realize how closely I identified with it until I had it sort of dangled and then snatched away again. Yeah. And they asked me to play Val Cooper, and I thought, well, I really, I want to be part of the franchise still, and I feel very close to the franchise. And she's actually, it's actually ended up being far more interesting. She has a far more interesting kind of journey than I thought at first. Yeah. She's not sort of a nameless, faceless bureaucrat.
Right.
In Genosha, I felt a lot of things. Pain, grief, admiration for those who fought despite the odds. But you know what the oddest thing was? No one seemed shocked or surprised.
But yeah, so it's been kind of a hard thing to, it's kind of like you play something for 5 years. Yeah. And and I know Jennifer Hale is the actress. She played Jean Grey as well. There were about 6 or 7 other actresses who played Jean Grey, but this was actually a continuation of my Jean Grey story and all my fellow cast members who were coming back. And I know that Cyclops is, that Norm was dead, and that was maybe an opportunity to cast a different couple. But anyway, so it's a loaded, that's why she looked at me. It's a loaded question.
It's been like, she's gone through a lot of an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
But I think with what we're, and again, can't really talk about things. Mm-hmm. But I do think that I think Val Cooper is a far more important character than we were originally.
Well, the irony is,
You know?
I haven't counted it up, but the irony is, I'm probably maybe in more episodes as Val Cooper than I would have been if I'd played Jean. But,
Yeah, and I think that was part of it. I believe wholeheartedly that Bo meant all the things that he said about your voice and how much he loves you and your performance. And I think he just had a different storyline. I think probably a more important storyline.
But to be fair, when a showrunner pitches their vision of a show to an entity like Disney or Marvel, and they get the green light, then it is their obligation to fulfill that vision that they have in their head. And it's within their rights to recast. I mean, we have no power.
Yeah.
So if whatever My Jean Grey was not part of his vision for the show, absolutely, that is their right. It's not like I resent that at all. It's not that at all. And I'm still honored to be, part of the franchise. I think we both are, to be involved. And because and I didn't even know what the term OG meant until I started going to cons a year ago. I was like, OG. I forget what I thought it meant, but what original gangsta? I don't know what it was. But
It's original gangster. Yes.
Yeah. Is it? Yeah. So
No.
at first I was like, well, I don't know if I should be, signing as Jean Grey because I'm no longer playing her. But then I realized that people came up to me and I realized that our voices live inside their heads as part of their childhood. And that's really an honor and a privilege. And I don't take that lightly. I really don't. So when somebody comes up, imagine going up to meet somebody who you spent your childhood hearing in your head and then they're a jerk or something at a con. That would just be so devastating.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a very long-winded answer.
That was a good answer.
Somebody didn't want me to play it. I don't know why.
It would be nice to know why. That's it.
I did ask.
I don't know.
I did ask at the very beginning. I never got an answer.
I don't know that I don't know. I think it's they have bigger plans for you.
Maybe that's it. Yeah. And this is for both of you. How often when you're out do you get recognized by fans? Like, how is that?
Go ahead.
It comes in waves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it'll be at the strangest things. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's, maybe not.
Time and place.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. Like if we're at if we're out after a con or something like that, but nowhere near the event or whatnot. And you're a few, like, had a couple tequilas because it's like, man, my feet hurt and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then like somebody recognizes you. It's like, please don't take photos with the drinks.
I am intoxicated.
Yeah. But no, it's actually been pretty good because most of the time it's just people are nice. They're like, just want to say I loved you on that show growing up or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and that's that.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah. It's really nice.
I get a lot of people not knowing why they know me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they know me. And they want to know. I had one woman, a very old woman standing in a street corner who said to me, "Do you know me?" Because I guess she figured, I know you, so you must know me. But it sort of looked like, oh my God, where's your handler?
Yeah.
But I get a lot. I like sort of trying to figure out where they know me from, like which television series. So I can kind of tell by the age group that's coming up to me and who. But you know what? Having said that, I did a series for Hallmark for many years. And the people, the demographic that you would absolutely not imagine that watches that show would come up to me. So I don't know anymore. I mean, and people are generally very nice. Some people just they think they went to high school with me and they keep, questioning you until you finally, and I remember one day, because it's kind of a process and you want to let them come to it. You don't want to assume. And then one day somebody said to me, I was at the vet. I was standing in line at the vet at the counter and somebody said to me and said, excuse me, can you, and I didn't have any time and I went, yeah, I'm an actor. And and she was like, no, could you hand me a case of that vodka? One time I did let somebody come to their own conclusions. Weirdly enough, like being in Europe and people came to you like in an airport in Europe and saying, because now with streaming, people watch these shows.
Yeah, all over.
Yeah, The Good Witch is on everywhere, all over the world. It's bizarre.
Chief Russell, as chairperson of the Citizens League, it is my responsibility to keep apprised of all developments in our community.
And on Comfy Couch, I was shocked at how many people. I thought it was a Canadian show. I had no idea it played in the States.
Yeah, it's played all over the world.
Yeah, and for people that dress up as Lunette and come with their Molly and come to the cons, it's so adorable. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's been pretty fun.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool seeing when you post on Twitter with fans and you're taking pictures. So
She has a nose that she wears.
Yeah.
Her red nose.
Do you have that with you?
I do actually.
Is it in your pocket? All of us wear one.
Wait, maybe I don't. No, I think I do.
Come on, we should all wear one.
This is
not the same one because that's how we all get sick.
Yeah. And it's honestly super gross. So it's an old nose.
You should have worn it the whole interview.
I thought we were doing an interview about the Big Comfy Couch.
Squishy.
Oh, that's weird. It feels like a dog nose. That's weird.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it's like a nice one.
Nice.
Yeah.
There. No, it does not have like the plug thing.
Like
no.
spikes that go up and anchor it to the.
There it is.
No, it's just.
It's really nice. Yeah. Really cute.
So is this original from?
It's one of the originals. Yeah, they'd make new ones each season, and they'd keep the ones that lasted as much as possible. But
lose them all like during the day. Like, oh my God, where's my nose?
It was glued to my face. It was glued. Like
they glued.
Oh yeah. So this is what I do nowadays for cons is I'll just get like the eyelash adhesive pen. And I just do a little bit of it. That's enough so I can actually put it on and off throughout the day. That's gum.
Really?
I had to. So when I was doing the Retro Kid photo shoot for the clothing line that just came out.
Oh yes.
They didn't have their makeup artist didn't. She had a eyelash adhesive, but it was black.
Okay.
So if I had put it on, I would have just had black stuff all over my nose, so we couldn't do that. So I'm like, all right, screw it. So I took the gum out of my mouth and I was like,
oh God,
guess we're going
in there.
It actually smelled really nice. I mean, it was minty.
It was like
It was minty, so it was quite nice.
It's kind of lost its.
Yeah, so I did that, and now I'm back to using the eyelash adhesive because that doesn't.
Fine, is it?
Retro Kid. So Retro Kid they get the rights to a bunch of different shows or stuff from your like nostalgic for.
Are they doing Lunette?
They did a big comfy couch drop, back in March, and then I think they're gonna do some more stuff, maybe closer to August. But yeah, it was really cute, and they've got Fraggle Rock going on right now, and then they did
clothing. It's clothing.
Yeah, like hoodies and t-shirts and socks and.
Oh, I see. Not like the clothing that the character wears. Actually, with the characters on the
merch.
Yeah, I get it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I just heard that everyone's wearing jumpsuits and being Lunette.
Oh yeah, no, not like the Halloween costume.
All right.
No,
I think that would sell though too.
Probably.
Yeah.
Pajamas.
Yeah.
So as you may know, Shinji Mikami is kind of the creator of Resident Evil and the forefront of the series, at least early on. Have either of you ever met him?
No.
I think I did when I was over, but at the Capcom office in Japan, in Osaka. Kamiya came to the records, though.
That's cool.
Like he came to RE2.
Yeah.
I think he came to a few RE3 as well.
Probably.
Yeah.
And then he did Devil May Cry as well.
Yep.
Big designer on that one. So, I met most of the big guys at Capcom when I was over there. But it was kind of a whirlwind.
How was Hideki Kamiya?
He looks just like the baseball player Ichiro Suzuki.
Okay.
He's glasses, very quiet.
Yeah.
Very, very quiet during the day. But as soon as you get a drink in him, he's very, very gregarious, very outgoing. One of the last times when we went out we were again in Osaka, went out for drinks and dinner, and he not long before that, he had been like in traction in the hospital from a motorcycle accident.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
so he'd really done a number on him. So yeah, he likes motorcycles.
Yeah.
He's incredibly talented and creative guy.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. You get to hang out with him, have drinks, and get to know him.
Really honored to be included in this group because you're way deeper into this stuff.
Have either of you ever met Stan Lee or have any stories about him or anything like that? No?
No, I don't.
I answered the phone once when he called the studio.
Did you really?
Yeah. I was in the control room while the guys were all arguing about something. So, and do you remember they used to order from Wing Machine?
Yeah.
So we'd have like this big bowl of chicken wings and this big bowl of fries, right? So, and they were all arguing over something. So I came in from, Dan Hennessy after he's looking around and they're arguing. He's like, come in. It's going to be
Everybody get out of the studio.
Yeah, so I went into the control room and they're all blah, 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 right?
That's good.
And I'm eating a chicken wing and then the phone is right there. It rings and I'm like, all right. And I'm like, Studio 4 and it's Stan Lee. And he's like, hey, is Joe there? Is Joe? Put calamari on the phone. And I'm like,
everybody's so angry. I'm
here you go.
with chicken wings.
Are you Tony's stank?
Okay. So that was my one Stan Lee encounter.
That's cool.
Chords were like endless, odysseys. They would go for like 8 hours.
Yeah.
They'd break for dinner, which was a big mistake. And some people would go drinking, and you have to go find them, and because they never come back after dinner. And they were endless.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
All right. What are your opinions on any of the Constantine films for Resident Evil? You guys watch any of those before?
I haven't. Have you?
Yeah, I watched the first one.
Okay.
And it was weird. It was
Mila Jovovich?
Yeah. But it was like, so they've done this I feel personally attacked. I feel like they've done this now with two of my characters.
Yeah.
They basically took Claire's personality and character and storyline and called her Alice and made her the main character in that
I could see
movie. So I was like,
that's clear.
Yeah. I do like when they're trying to read the map and they're like, we're in the dining hall or something whatever. It was, but it's actually the big cargo room or whatnot.
Yeah.
So there were some fun things. And when the grid comes, the lasers and they die. So there were some really cool things that they did in that movie. But I was a little irked that they basically had Claire, but just called her a different name.
Yeah.
And then, because they did the same thing with the first X-Men movie.
Oh.
They stole basically Jubilee
Yeah.
from Night of the Sentinels and her relationship with Wolverine and gave it to Rogue as a child and a kid, right? And I'm like, what? Come on, guys.
Well, maybe with the new Deadpool coming out, it'll reset the cinematic universe. You never know.
I'm about to make a name for myself here.
I think X-Men 97 is resetting the cinematic universe for Marvel, in the same way that the original cartoon did for them, too. It was the first sort of successful iteration of the X-Men that they had been able to bring to any kind of screen. And I think it actually set the tone for the movies. And that's why those characters were in the main characters in the movies, because they were, the original writers and director of the original X-Men cartoon had to choose from all those mutants and all those stories and all those comic storylines and figure out how to make that family and make it cohesive. And so I think they were looking for another win. They hadn't had a win in a long time. And this is a win for them, the new cartoon. So I imagine it will influence what goes forward.
For sure. It worked here. Why not do it there?
Last question.
Okay.
Have either of you ever thought that the Resident Evil franchise would become as big as it is?
No.
No.
Certainly not when we were working on those first games. Like, didn't have a clue. What did your contract say? Because my contract was adventure game number 2.
Oh yeah, no, I don't believe it was only when I told someone else the name of the character that I was doing.
Yeah.
They said, "Oh, they've already been in it. You should go back and look at the game." Because I don't believe that the title was there.
Yeah, they always kept everything.
Oh yeah, they keep it very hush hush, and it's called Biohazard in Japan too. So that's why some people
of course, yeah.
So,
but no, not at all. And the only time I really realized it, to be honest, is when I started going to cons like a year and a half ago, and I didn't even bother. I didn't bring any Resident Evil photos or anything. I'm there for X-Men and Good Witch or whatever, and And the number of people that came up to me, you've got a mosquito, the only mosquito that is alive.
Get out of here.
And the number of people that came up to me with their original games.
Yeah.
Like 24-year-old, my son's games would like crack and scratch within 2 years. When people were coming to me at the table and bringing stuff to sign, I was shocked. And I had to really cast my mind back because I was like, I don't know how much I remember. And then slowly when, people talking about it, and I went and watched a playthrough and it all came back and I was, well, so you went to a lot more cons than I did. I mean, before I went, so you must have had fans coming up to you.
Yeah, so I did a few small ones here and there. It was more online that people, like through Twitter.
And all social media.
People found me on Twitter.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the bigger response.
I'm a social media phobe. I'm not a...
No, I don't blame you. Like, I don't do any of the others just because I don't know how people have energy.
It's a lot to keep
for
up with.
doing all those things.
Yeah.
It's a full-time job
really
maintaining
is.
those things. But so I knew it was popular, but it's still it's fun to see. It's really fun to see at cons. And I love when we're sitting beside each other because people lose their minds.
Yeah.
There's, Jubilee and Jean Grey from the original series. And then someone comes up to me because they're a Resident Evil fan. I'm like, well, you know that she's Jill Valentine. They're like, what?
It's kind of fun.
Yeah. It's been really
It's a little mind-blowing doing this interview, having both of you here. So it's like that for me too. I'm just trying to be professional.
And you're doing a very good job.
Thank you.
See, we know each other. It's like no big, it's like, yeah. And I guess it's that's the other thing. I mean, to us, it's a job, and it's and we don't obsessively, not that you obsessively play the game, although
I think I do.
The way you're dressed, maybe.
Yeah, I think we remember doing it. I think this is,
you know what I mean? Like, we don't know it as intimately as you know it, honestly.
Yeah.
And you're going to find that out in a few minutes when we
play that game.
try to play.
It's going to be so bad.
Oh, it's going to be so humiliating.
You're going to do great.
The
worse you do, the more fun it's going to be.
What?
The worse you do, the more fun it's going to be.
Oh, God. I'm spatially, there's something wrong with me, clearly, because I
don't know how, I don't know
this
how to feels wrong. I don't know.
It's the game controls, it's different.
I once tried to play, or not, I tried to play, I finally had my son try playing the original RE2.
Oh, yeah?
Right? And I was tweeting it as he was doing it.
Oh, nice.
And I'm like, what an asshole. He keeps killing me. Like, and it was just, and it was hard. He was like, he could not get past like the beginning. He was just like, this is ridiculous. So of course, games nowadays are so different.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and my son he's a big gamer. He plays a lot of video games. And even when he was younger and he begged me to play with him, and whatever game it was, I was just like facing the wall and hopping up and down. He was like, hey, press that. And I'm like, I know. It was so stressful.
Yeah.
And then of course you just die.
Yeah.
Pablo, the original voice actor for Wesker in RE1, has a YouTube channel with his son. They play through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, his son's name is Lexonal.
Yes, Lex.
Yeah. So, Lexonal or Lexinol, I can't remember how to pronounce
it. That's the name of his channel. Yeah. And they play the Resident Evil games together, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to watch.
Yes.
But
before we close it out, is there anything you guys would like to say to the Resident Evil community? Maybe like a closing message?
I don't know. Thank you for coming up to us when you see us, and we really appreciate it. And we appreciate knowing that it's still a game that is, personally, because the one I feel like it's such a throwback, and there's so many kind of glitches, and it's kind of, but there's a joy to that game, and there's kind of a control, and I get it.
Yeah.
But thank you for coming after us. I mean, you've got a lot more, but of games that people can come to you for. But I really I'm very touched by it. Yeah.
No, the fan base has been incredible, and the continued support, even now, even after the remakes, and the love is strong, and it's wonderful. Like, people are just really, really delightful. And as Catherine said, thank you for coming up to us at conventions or when you see us.
Because a lot of the people who watched X-Men as kids also played these video games, and they're like, you're my childhood in many ways. And it's kind of phenomenal. And Funko.
Make a Claire Redfield Funko Pop, please.
And make more Jill Valentine ones. They are so hard to find. And I won't worry about ruining them when I sign them if I know they're easier to get.
There you go.
And there is no Claire Redfield one.
No!
Gotta get one.
Come on.
It's a must.
We need a Funko.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw actually a Jill Valentine on eBay for like $300. Kind of what I wanted to say too, that I really enjoy. Thank you to the fans who come up and talk about the remake and go, yeah, it's just not the same.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys are the extra special fans.
And the playthrough is like only like 2 hours. I can play through it in 2 hours.
Right.
Maybe I'm exaggerating, but and no one ever says I replay the remakes all the time.
Yeah.
But generally I hear a lot about how people just replay the old games. Yeah. And we really appreciate it.
There's something very special about the originals, you know? That's why people are still playing them to this day. And it's the...
I think it's the tube top in my case.
I think it's the non-grumpy Claire face.
Yeah. Yeah, so when I think of these characters, I hear your voices in my head, you know, as Claire and Jill. So
I almost forgot before we wrap.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you the same question I asked her. When it came time for Revelations 2 and RE2 remake, were you ever get called about that or contacted?
Yeah, I actually did a video talking about it. So when the first one came about, Capcom had told, there were 2 localization companies that were bidding on the project, one in Vancouver, one in LA. And they both separately reached out to my agent to see if I would be willing to voice Claire again. This is what it would be, and at this time and whatnot. And we gave them I'm a union actor, and basic rates and all that stuff, nothing fancy.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, great. The LA company got the contract. As soon as they got it, they let my agent know that they were going non-union. So if I wanted to be part of it, I'd have to figure out, and they were going to shoot in LA, so I'd have to figure out how to get down there, and it would be non-union.
And we don't do that.
And I'm like, no, dick move also.
Yeah.
Because you just kind of scammed the client.
Yeah.
So I actually don't put it on Capcom for that first one.
Okay.
Sure.
But since then, I think it was just sort of like, okay, whatever. We'll let the localization. The one thing that always frustrated me with Capcom sometimes is the respect that is given to the Japanese voice actors.
Yeah.
And they're very loyal and they stay with the same people, and there's a ton of love for them, and they really do continue with the same actors and appreciate them. But when it comes to anywhere else, they're like, oh, we don't care.
Changes all the time.
Yeah, we don't
Fans
care.
just like
It's because it's not our market.
consistency.
And it's frustrating because the fans care.
Yes.
The fans really do care. They're incredibly loyal and they like the consistency. And they get to know a character, and the voices, it lives in your head, right? So to me, it seems like you're being disrespectful to the fans, to your base. So I do find it an odd approach, because I know that they've shown that they can care.
Yeah.
So why not do it for all versions of the games, right?
I agree. As a fan, I felt that. You know? I remember we had talked about that before.
Yeah.
Yes. I definitely understand how frustrating that would be. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the other voice actors or actors that I talk to have somewhat of a similar story about this or that with Capcom, so, and how they're treated or paid or whatever. So it's just interesting to hear all of your guys' stories.
Yeah.
As actors, especially as voice actors, we're kind of taught that we're dispensable.
Yeah. Bottom of the food chain.
Yeah. No one is indispensable. If you can't do it, I can find someone to do a voice match on you and do the part.
Yeah.
So it's a mentality that we have too, that we're used to.
Yeah, but I don't think they understood how these characters would resonate with a fandom. Building a fandom and getting, like you said, attached to a character, used to a character. It's not like they think it is. It's once you get used to a character, that's who people envision as that character, built the character. You know what I mean? So
And look at these games. I mean, the fact that, that 30 years later that they're remaking them because of the fandom.
Yeah.
And they don't make that connection, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yep.
I just want to say thank you for being here. Really means a lot to us, obviously. I think a lot of fans out there are really gonna like what you guys have to say. So very meaningful. But we're honored.
Thank you for having us.
Yes,
We're honored too.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for having us drive up to your murder room.
Yeah. The bloodstain's gone. Don't worry, we made it nice for you guys.
Yeah. No, this was a.
The fact that it's over the headboard of the bed is even more disturbing.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
So for some additional context, really quick, we
This is the murder room.
pitched the video. JJ and I were standing here after we removed the closets for the Keeper's Diary, and it's empty, and we hadn't painted yet, and there was still a blood splatter on the wall.
Huge blood stain.
And this is like middle of nowhere, abandoned factory.
This is our pitch video.
The two of you were standing in the foreground with the perfectly placed between you, the bloodstain in the back wall, going, trying to convince us that we take care of you and come and we'll have fun. We'll have a lot of
Calls
fun.
me and she's like, have you seen the video that they said trying to convince us to do this?
I know. I said to Andrew, the next time we
It's a murder room.
next time we try to convince
murder room.
two actresses to come to the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Do something with you in an old warehouse. Maybe don't have a blood stain on the wall behind you.
Thought that after we're like, maybe that wasn't a good idea. You guys are here.
Where's the VFX guy?
Stain, it helped.
Where's the CGI guy when you need it?
I had to watch the video again. I was laughing so hard the first time I didn't hear a word you said.
That's great. Anyways, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, guys, that's going to be it for this video.
If you like this video and you want to see more like it, we can't do it without your support. So please, subscribe to our channel, like this video, comment below, share it with others, hit that notification bell, and join us on Patreon. Without you, none of this is possible. That being said, please let us know your thoughts on today's video in the comments below.
As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and we hope to see you back at the Residence of Evil.